good evening to the 12th grade students, parents, and high school counselors. Thank you so much for joining us for the Knowledge at KPT Admissions 101 workshop series today. As you've seen in our outreach campaign and on our workshop schedule, we have Mr. Peter Lee from the University of Texas at Arlington, who's going to be sharing more information about his institution. And I know we got a lot of good response when this event went up. So I'm sure many of you are excited because, of course, the University of Texas at Arlington is such a well-known name here, university name here in India. And I'm sure many of you are excited for this session. As you may know from our outreach campaign and of course the session rules, please ensure to post all your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box so as to ensure that Mr. Peter has access to all of these questions and can easily answer them. He'll be more than happy to answer all of your questions towards the end of the workshop session. And he'll be delighted to hear from you as well. So having said that, without further ado, Mr. Peter Lee, thank you so much for joining us for the Admissions 101 workshop session today. We truly appreciate your kind time. As I mentioned, we know it's very late, very early in the morning out there in the US. So truly appreciate your kind time. And of course, campus has started, the semester started from a busy schedule. I'm going to now hand over the stage and the microphone to you, and I wish you the very best for the session. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. And thank you, students and family members, for attending, and counselors as well. So my name is Peter Lee. I am an admissions counselor here at the University of Texas at Arlington. It really is not that early here. It's only 7 in the morning. So it is my privilege and honor to be talking to students in India. I've actually been very fortunate enough to actually travel to India quite a couple times. So it's such a beautiful country, and I love interacting with students predominantly from India as well. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my university, but I also want to talk a little bit about what you should expect when you're applying to U.S. schools. I'm sure everybody here attending this event is some way, shape, or form interested in studying in the U.S. or studying abroad in one point of their lives. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to share with you guys, I know India is such a vast, big, beautiful country, and it's so diverse in different regions. I think it's important to note that the United States is also a very, very big country, very diverse as well. So the U.S. is pretty much into certain regions. We have the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, and then we have the Southwest, where my school is located, and that's where I'm from. I'm from Texas, with the University of Texas at Arlington. But I think it's good to know that the United States is such a big country, because that means that there's a lot of options for you guys when you're looking to studying abroad. But really, wherever you decide to go in the United States, you're gonna have a great education no matter what. The only issue that you should be looking into is that school a right fit for you? And there's a lot of things that you want to consider when you're applying to schools in the US, and that's probably going to be the predominant talking points today in my presentation. I'm going to use my university as an example, kind of break down what I think is the best thing you guys should be doing, especially since you guys are seniors and you're about to graduate very, very soon. Congratulations, by the way. And this has been the first week of school here in the US, so I'm sure you guys are busy starting, classes and things like that. So I think this is a good start. One of the first things that I like to talk to students, especially abroad, is the cost of living standards in the US. Since we're such a big country and we're so diverse, there's always going to be your money and cost of living standards will vary greatly depending on which state you want to live in. Looking at this map, you can see colors in blue, meaning that it's less value, and then colors in orange will be more value. So if you were to break it down, if you had $100, what that $100 really means when you're actually buying something in the individual states, you can see, like in California, that $100 is actually only $88. And this is just a very broad example. Why this is important is because everyone has to pay for tuition, right? But there's other factors that you need to consider. like living costs, housing, expenses, food, lodging, and things like that. And that could really add up. So if you were to maybe receive a scholarship for maybe like $1,000 at one institution, that $1,000 may be a lot more at a different university versus another university if they're from different states. So I think that's really good to kind of see um, a, um, a wide perspective of the US and kind of the cost of living standards. And that way you can kind of see which state you prefer to live in. This is not the only indication. There are other factors that you should consider as well, such as what are some interesting things to do. Going to school it's really hectic and it can be stressful at times, but when you're here in the United States, we want you to have fun as well. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for you guys to explore. We have a lot of holidays in the United States as well, so there's going to be a lot of ample opportunity for you to travel and things like that. So get to know your state, get to know the place that you're going to be living. Even though you're going to be studying in the US, I mean, that is my hope. You're going to be living there for an extended period of time, right? So this technically is going to be your second home or your new home. So these are some things that you want to consider. The Southwest region is where Texas is located. And these are some fun national monuments and things that you can do. Camping. A lot of students, when they think of Texas, they think of cowboy culture and deserts. Although that may be true in some regard, that is not exactly what Texas is like, even though you can kind of see some deserts here. But there are a lot of major cities and a lot of other fun activities as well. But I outlined some amazing attractions as well for you. And then let's talk about my university. So the University of Texas at Arlington, one of the first things you want to consider is the rankings, right? Obviously, you want to go to a very good school. Here at UTA, we are a comprehensive R1 research institution. That is something that we're extremely proud of because not many schools in the United States can boast the fact that they're an R1 research institution. What that means is that we are classified as having the highest research activity on campus. So faculty members, professors, they're actively engaging in ongoing research. Why that's important to you guys is because that really opens up a lot of doors for funding opportunities. So there will be moments where you may be able to assist professors with their ongoing research projects, and that builds your resume, that builds your rapport, it builds your experience, and things like that. So, you know, to be able to attend a comprehensive R1 research institution, it just means that you're going to be exposed to many new research projects, many new innovative ideas and technology equipment, etc. We're also a very, very large university. Over 41,000 students actually actively enrolled and are on campus here at the university. International students actually play a very, very large part in that population. As you can see, 4,000 students are international students. We're one of the most diverse student bodies in the nation, actually ranking 5th and 6th respectively as having the most diverse student body, which means that students here represent over 130 countries across the globe. So it is very neat and interesting that when you do arrive on campus that you get to meet people from different cultures and different backgrounds. And that's really what you want to expect when you're traveling abroad, right? You want to get that experience to meet new people, make new friends, and things like that. Students from India actually play a large part in our international population. More than 10% of our international students are Indian students. So that's going to be really good for you guys too, because if you're homesick, there's always going to be clubs and organization to help you get acclimated. One of our largest clubs here in UTA is actually the Indian Fine Arts Society, and they host a numerous amounts of traditions in India. They play Bollywood movies, and they celebrate a lot of holidays from India as well. So it's like a home away from home, so to speak. When I traveled to India to speak with students, I was only gone for about 2 weeks and I felt homesick really, really quick. So I can only imagine if you guys were to travel to the US, for 4 years to complete your bachelor's degree, how would you feel for being that long away from your family and your friends? So it's good to know that you're not alone, that you have a large population of international students, students from India, just like you, that you can make friends with and connect. So since we are also a large institution and we're a comprehensive R1 research institution as well, we do have a lot of programs, over 180 degree programs. So I'm hoping we have some form of program that fits your needs here at UTA. A little bit more about rankings. I think this is extremely important. When you're looking at schools in the US, not only do you want to go to a school that has the program that you want to study, but one is the diversity, the diversity that I mentioned. Here at UTA, we're ranked 5th in the nation and having the most undergraduate diversity. That's according to the U.S. News and World Report. But also, how safe is that school? UTA is actually one of the safest colleges on campus here in the United States. And that's a huge feat, especially since one, we're such a very large school, and two, we're located in one of the largest metroplex and one of the fastest growing economies in the US. That's a huge feat, because to know that you're here and you can be safe, that's a big deal. We have our own police department here on campus. We also have our own health clinic on campus. So you can be rest assured that when you're here, that you'll be well taken care of, and you can really focus on things that matter, right? Like your school, your education, making friends, learning, etc. So I think this is really important. When you're looking at schools in the US, pay attention to their rankings in regards to safety. Pay attention to the rankings in regards to diversity, because no matter where you go in regards to education, the education factor of it, you're going to have a great education. A U.S. education is always going to be top notch. As long as that school is accredited, it's good. It's the other rankings that I think are important that you may want to consider as well. And then some additional numbers. I'm not going to go over too much of this, but one of the two things that really stands out to me is on the right-hand side, the 1.5 million in federal grant funding that we get every single year through the federal government. And that money is really used to showcase all of our research projects that are going on here on campus. And that's a really good number to have. And then on the bottom left-hand corner, Fortune 500. So the University of Texas at Arlington is strategically located in the center of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So we are literally 10 to 15 minutes away from the city of Dallas and 10 to 15 minutes away from the city of Fort Worth. Within the city of Dallas and Fort Worth, we have one of the largest concentrations of Fortune 500 companies in the nation. And what that means from you is, what does that mean is you're going to get ample opportunities for internships, networking experience, and things of that nature. So how great is it that you get to go to school here, and then 20 minutes down the road, you get to interview for an internship opportunity. So those experiences you will receive because you're located in such a strategic location where there's a booming economy. We're actually 5th in the nation, having the fastest growing economy in the US. And we have proof to show it, right? We have alumni here who holds leadership positions at 24 of the major companies, ranging from Boeing, American Airlines, Exxon, and things like that. So we have a lot of companies and corporations that partner with us here at UTA, because I know a lot of students in India, they talk about placement and things like that. So I would say internship opportunities are vast. We have tons of resources on campus, and we actually encourage our students to seek out internships and practical experience along with their education. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that we are a big school and we have so many majors. This is kind of a breakdown at a high level of what we offer here at the University of Texas at Arlington. So you can see it's a large range from architecture all the way down to the School of Social Work. So if you're interested in any of these fields, I highly suggest you guys to do your research. Follow us on our UTA website. Reach out to me. I'll provide my contact information. I would love to give you more information about the specifics about each college that's represented here at UTA. But for the most part, a lot of students that I've met with in India, a lot of them are interested in engineering. So we have a really good engineering program. We actually, our career development center is named the Lockheed Martin Career Development Center. It goes to show you, if you're familiar with the company Lockheed Martin, it's such a renowned company and organization. They hire a lot of our students, and engineering is such a great field to be in, especially now. So from civil engineering all the way to biomedical engineering, which is one of the more interesting engineering fields. Civil engineering, industrial engineering, electrical engineering, computer science. If you're interested in working with AI and coding, we have that as well. So, but we have a vast amount of degree fields. Unfortunately, I won't be able to talk about all of them, but definitely let me know what programs specifically that you're interested in. I would love to follow up with you after the presentation. Okay, so this is a very generic application process. This is going to be very common when you're looking at applying to schools in the US. Not necessarily just the University of Texas at Arlington, but most schools in the US will follow this similar guideline. I think this is kind of important because I do encourage you to research what school you want to go to, and don't focus just on one school. Maybe look at 1, 2 to 3 schools. Here in the US, when we talk to our high school students here, we've always encouraged students to look at least five to 10 schools that they're interested in applying to. Now, the only issue is when you're applying to multiple schools, each school is going to ask you to submit an application fee. And you can imagine sending multiple application fees will take a toll because the money will add up. So be very cautious, do your research, limit your schools that you're applying to as much as possible, so that way you don't feel that you're paying too much in application fees. But it starts off simply with an online application. Most schools in the US will do an online application, and we streamline it to make it as easy as possible. Here at UT Arlington, we use the Apply Texas application. We also use Common App as well for undergraduate students. So it's simply just logging on to that website. The Apply Texas website is used for predominantly most schools in the state of Texas. So if you're applying to, the UT Austin, University of Houston, and stuff like that, you're probably going to use the applytexas.org website. When you log in, you just identify what school. If you're applying to UTA, you just indicate that, what program, and what term you're wanting to, what intake you're wishing to attend that university. And that's pretty much it. You submit your profile, and then you pay the application fee. The price will range and will vary. Usually it could be, $50 all the way up to $90. Here at UT Arlington, our application fee is $75. And then we'll ask for official transcripts. So all you high school students that are about to graduate, we're gonna ask for your transcripts. And then test scores. So there's gonna be 2 types of test scores when you're applying to U.S. schools. Generally, it's gonna be the SAT or the ACT, either or, which one you would take, and English proficiency scores. So for English proficiency, it's going to be either the TOEFL, IELTS, or possibly the Duolingo. Here at UT Arlington, we implemented the Duolingo exam, so you can submit that. Check with each school just to make sure. A lot of international students have told me the Duolingo exam is a lot easier. I don't know if that's true. I've never taken the exam. I do know it's a lot cheaper though. So that's a good alternative if you feel like you're struggling with the TOEFL exam or the IELTS exam for English proficiency, that you may want to look into the Duolingo. So in regards to test scores, we'll need either the SAT or ACT and an English proficiency. So keep this in mind as well. In light of the current situation of COVID-19, I totally understand what is going on, especially in India with the lockdown. And I'm hoping things will get a lot better pretty soon. And from what I can hear from students, it seems like things are picking up and things are slowly opening. So I'm grateful to hear that. But in light of COVID-19, if you're applying for fall 2021 intake, a lot of U.S. schools have done something called test optional, meaning that the SAT, ACT is not even a requirement anymore. So double check with the schools that you're applying to see if they're test optional. Here at UT Arlington, we have approved test optional to fall 2021. So what that means is when you apply with us, you have the option to either take the exam or do not take the exam. If you choose not to take the exam, you'll just indicate that on the application and we will admit you based off of your high school transcripts and your grades based off of that. You will still, however, need to provide English proficiency scores. So you'll still need to submit TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. However, the SAT or the ACT could be test optional and you don't have to submit that when you're applying. So that may be a plus for you, right? The downside to that is, and I encourage every student here to consider taking the SAT. Regardless, and I understand it may be difficult for some students. I totally understand that. But if it is an option, I would always prefer a student to take the SAT exam because that really opens up the door for funding opportunities. Because you may get admitted to a school, a university in the U.S., but you may not get a scholarship in light of the fact that you did not submit SAT scores. A lot of scholarships are merit-based. So it's going to be based off of your academic performance. It would be a challenge for someone to apply to a university and don't have any test scores on file to consider that student for a scholarship or not. Things are changing, policies are changing, so there is a possibility that we may update our policies or scholarship policies, and we may just look at your transcripts from high school. But for the time being, right now, SAT and ACT scores are what we use to consider for scholarship consideration. So please consider to take it still, if possible. Okay, so admissions requirements. So this is another thing that's pretty streamlined to most schools in the US. This is going to be how we characterize you as either a freshman or transfer. Everybody here in this audience, since you guys are rising seniors in high school, you guys would be considered freshman students. So, and then earlier I talked about the test scores and what we will need. TOEFL, IELTS for English proficiency kind of gives you a baseline of what minimum score is acceptable. We also have the Duolingo as well. Keep that in mind. And then SAT, ACT scores. So this is kind of a breakdown of what scores we are expecting. If you guys have taken like a practice exam in the past, or maybe you have taken the SAT or the ACT already, this kind of shows you what we are expecting. Typically for the SAT, 1270 or better will be a very strong candidate. ACT would be a 28. Now keep in mind, this is just an average, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that if you score below a 1270, we won't accept you, okay? Definitely, we will still look at your application. We will consider other factors. Most US schools will use something called a holistic approach. So if you don't meet our admissions requirements, we will individually review your application and assess other factors when assessing a decision. but these are the numbers that you really want to aim for. Obviously, it's easy for me to say the higher the score, the better. But consider these scores, and if you've taken the exam already, if you have time to improve your scores, I definitely consider that option. Or if you already taken it and you have really good scores, then I will consider you a strong applicant and you should consider applying. Okay, so one of the things that I think is really, really important for you to consider when you're applying to schools in the US is identifying deadlines. The beauty about the United States is that, one, we're such a big country, and two, that means that we have so many colleges. So what that means is so many opportunities, right? So you can apply to pretty much over 10 to 20 colleges in the US, all good schools. The only problem is every single school is going to have different deadlines. So it's going to get, it's a really, it could be a very difficult juggling act to see which deadline you should prioritize first, and etc. Right? So the first thing I would consider before you even start the application process is once you have identified maybe like 1 or 3 schools that you're interested in applying to in the US, figure out what the deadlines are. So here at UTA, I'll give you some examples. These are our application priority dates for each intake. We do rolling admissions at the university here at UTA. What that means is that we accept applications year round. So we have fall intake, we have spring intake, we even have summer intake. So traditionally, most students will join us in the fall, and that's probably the most ideal term because that's where all the scholarships, most scholarship fundings will be. Most of our class offerings will be in the fall. That's predominantly the traditional route. But we also offer spring and summer as well. It's also important to note too that these are just the admissions deadline. There are other deadlines that you need to consider. When the deadline, your visa appointment, for instance, that's a deadline. Deadline for scholarships, if it is a separate scholarship application. Here at UTA, we don't have a separate scholarship application. It's just you apply, we will automatically consider you for a scholarship. But some schools may have a separate scholarship application, housing deadline. So do you need to do a housing application as well on top of that? Where are you going to live in the US? Dorms, they have a deadline that's separate. So some of the dorms will fill out pretty quickly. So these are all these deadlines that you need to consider. And you really need to be organized because if you miss one deadline, it's great that you've been admitted, but you just missed the scholarship deadline, for example, right? Or you got the scholarship deadline correct, but unfortunately you missed the application deadline to even apply to that university. So I think it's very important to understand the deadlines. It's unfortunate that the deadlines are all different from different colleges across the US, but especially now, I think now is a good time, especially for you guys that are rising seniors and finishing off your last year in high school. If you can take the time to start organizing these dates and gathering what we need, you will be in very, very good shape once the time comes for you to apply. Okay, and then probably the most common question that a lot of students ask me is and parents too, is how much is it gonna cost? Now, the cost factor is gonna vary greatly on many, many things. But this is pretty much a breakdown that I think is probably the most easy to digest in figuring out how much it's gonna cost per year at a US institution. Now, the numbers will vary. Remember, I showed you that first PowerPoint slide on the cost of living standards across the US. So it is gonna vary greatly, but take this in consideration. These are numbers from the University of Texas at Arlington, my school. On the left-hand column is the undergraduate column. So those are freshman students, transfer students, students that are working towards a 4-year bachelor's degree. So keep in mind, a bachelor's degree in the US is 4 years long. So that's a long time, right? You're gonna be living in the US, you're gonna be living on campus for the most part, living in Arlington, Texas for 4 years. So the tuition is approximately $23,630 per 1 year. You times that by 4, you kind of get the understanding of how much the tuition will cost. Now, the interesting thing is the living number. That's gonna vary greatly on so many factors. So the total of 39,000 or close to 40,000 per year, that's just an estimate. I can't give you an exact number, unfortunately, because that just depends on how you decide to live. Here at UT Arlington, we don't have a living requirement. So we don't require you to live on campus. For the most part, on-campus housing is extremely expensive for some students. Of course, we have cheaper alternatives as well. But a lot of students, in the international community that I've noticed, a lot of them will just decide to rent an apartment that's nearby to campus, and then they just walk or take a shuttle bus to campus to class, and they have a huge amount of savings that way. So there's a lot of alternatives to living, and of course, how you decide to eat. Are you going to get a meal plan? And things like that. So that 15,000 can drastically be reduced just depending on your lifestyle. And it can change from year to year. So also keep in mind as well that these numbers, these are not in consideration of scholarship potential. So you could easily get a scholarship, and that could really change the numbers and greatly reduce these figures. So this is just an estimate, assuming that you don't have a scholarship, and you arrive, this is what you can expect, and you're going to be living in one of the medium to high living standards in regards to lifestyles. So obviously you can save money here and there, but I think this is a good start and a good estimate of what you can expect to spend when you're studying in the United States. So yeah, so this is just estimates. It can vary greatly from student to student. Okay, and then yeah, earlier I said deadlines, right? How important deadlines are. It's one thing to get the application deadline down, but it's another to get the scholarship deadline, housing deadline, other deadlines to consider. So scholarship deadlines. If you are a strong candidate, meaning that you did really, really well on the SAT, I highly suggest you guys apply within these deadlines. So February 14th, no later, because we do offer very competitive scholarship packages. The Maverick Academic Scholarship can range from $2,000 all the way up to $8,000 per year that you can receive. That's going to greatly reduce your tuition for sure. But on top of that, here in Texas, if you qualify for any merit scholarships that are over $1,000, you can receive in-state tuition rates. And that is, for the most part, a 50% reduction in your tuition. So I would encourage you to apply and meet the Maverick Academic Scholarship deadline of February 14th. Even if you're not, I would always encourage students to apply for the scholarship consideration, because whether you receive a $2,000 scholarship, which is the lower tier, or the $8,000 scholarship, which is the higher tier, regardless, you're going to win, because let's say you get a $2,000 scholarship because your SAT score is maybe not too high, not too competitive amongst the freshman class. But that $2,000 scholarship will greatly reduce your tuition because you may qualify for in-state tuition. So either way, even though $2,000 may not sound like a lot, but the fact that you get to get your tuition reduced to in-state, which is a 50% reduction, is huge. And you think about that for 4 years, now we're talking about, your tuition being a lot more affordable, and you can reduce your tuition costs, increase your living costs, and then have a really, really good time on campus and here in the US. So, okay, so one of the last things that I want to talk about in regards to finding the right fit or finding what's a good college to attend It's more than just saying, oh, that school has the major that I want. It's what can the campus do for you to ensure that you'll be successful? You know, I take no joy in recruiting a student and bringing a student on campus and watching them fail. The whole point of you going to college is really to graduate within 4 years, get a successful job, become a successful member of society, whether it be in the US or back in India. So it's more than just understanding the textbooks, more than just understanding the lecture and stuff like that. So what resources on campus is there to help you in being successful? And I think that's really important to look at when you're looking at schools in the US, because it is going to be a financial commitment. It is going to be a time commitment. You're going to be here for 4 years. So these are some outline of resources that I think are beneficial. We have all these here at UTA, but I think it's a good indication for you to take when you look at other schools as well. You know, like the Office of International Education, how well do they treat you there? What workshops can they provide you in regards to like your visa questions, questions about international, you know, traveling back home and stuff like that, to visit your family? How engaged are they with you, right? Because you're going to be interacting with the International Education Office pretty periodically throughout your career in college. University libraries. How is the library at that school? Does it give you ample amount of space to study? Here at UTA, we actually have 4 libraries. We're such a big campus, but we have 4 libraries, one of which is actually open 24 hours. So there's no excuse not to study, no excuse not to get high marks, because the library will be readily available to you all day, all night. You can study throughout. And the fact that we're one of the safest campuses in the nation, according to the recent rankings, top 100 safest schools in the country, you can very well study at 2 in the morning. I've done this in the past. You can very well study, you know, 2 or 3 in the morning. And then, you know, you can call the UTA police and they can escort you home, you know, and they'll provide you an escort service. So I think those are the things that you really need to consider. The Lockheed Martin Career Development Center. So earlier I mentioned about internship opportunities, right? Internships is one thing that we always encourage students to do. However, you're not going to be doing it alone, okay? We have resources on campus to help you, one of which is a Lockheed Martin Career Development Center. Their task is to help you perfect your interviewing skills, make your resume look very sharp and beautiful. They actually host workshops. 2 main career fairs are hosted on campus annually, one in the fall, one in the spring. And we invite companies and organizations from all across the world to come talk to students and provide them guidance and also give them internship opportunities. And then, of course, student organizations. So it's one thing going to school and learning. It's another thing to remember to have fun, right? So we have 300 plus student organizations on campus, and one of which, the largest, is actually the Indian Fine Arts Society here, which they do an amazing job with connecting the student, connecting the university to Indian culture, really connecting with our international population. So there's always going to be some form of club or organization for you to join. Indian Fine Arts Society is just one out of 300 that you can do. And if there's not a club that you're interested in, you can definitely make your own club, you know, find a group of friends, form your own club. Badminton club, we have soccer club, cricket club. We actually have our own cricket field. So there's a lot of things that you can do on campus, and we want to make sure that you guys understand that, because it could be scary and daunting for you to travel abroad for the very first time, living in a different country that you're not familiar with. But it's good to know that there are other people and organizations here on campus, especially our campus, that are very inclusive and are actually eager to have you join us. And then health services as well. I know it's, you may not think about this, but because I know I'm a student here myself, and I rarely use the health service department, but it's good to know that we do have general medicine, doctors, physicians, nurses on campus, just in case if you need, x-rays done, you need a flu shot, flu season's coming up. So it's good to know that these services are readily available on campus as well for you, for just a peace of mind. Okay, and then earn while you learn. So we talked about internships, but also job opportunities on campus. So as an international student, you are limited on where you can work within the US. So obviously you cannot work outside the university, but in the university, you're more than welcome to apply to jobs on campus. And one of the pros about the University of Texas at Arlington and why I think we're such a great school is because, one, we're such a big school, right? We have over 40,000 students. What that means is that we need a lot of student workers to help run like the computer labs, the cafeteria, and things like that. So there's going to be opportunities for you to find job on campus, and I always encourage you to do that because, one, it builds your resume, gives you work experience, we pay you, and at the same time, we always try to work with your schedule. So if you have a tough final exam coming up, or you have, you're just not feeling well, we understand that student workers are students first. So if the opportunity arises, I highly encourage you to seek out jobs on campus. So that way, one, it gives you more income, and two, your supervisors will always make sure that you have ample amount of time to study for your upcoming exams and things like that. And you're not going to find that working outside the university. So, but just let you know that those opportunities are available here at UTA as well. Okay. And then these are my final steps, my final tips for you guys when you're looking at applying abroad in the US is, one is always review application requirements for your attended program. So if you're interested in, civil engineering or interested in architecture, review the website of each college to see what the requirements are and see if you fit the admission standards. Second thing is prepare early for the exams. SAT, ACT exams, we are test optional. Some schools in the US are moving that direction, so you may not need to take those exams, right? So identify if you have to take those exams or not. If you don't have to take those exams, how will that affect your scholarship opportunities? Here at UTA, unfortunately, we still use the SAT for scholarship consideration. So even though we are test optional, meaning that you don't have to take it, I still encourage you to take it because that opens the doors for you to receive one of our many merit-based scholarships. That will be a great opportunity for you. So prepare early for the exams. Either way, if you're going to take the SAT or the ACT or not, you will still have to take the English proficiency exams, TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. So prepare early for the exam. I really want you to do well. And then last but not least, of course, submit your application and materials as early as possible. So identify when the dates are and make sure you submit your application no later than the priority date of your desired intake term. Okay, thank you guys so much. I hope that helped in your preparation when you're looking at schools in the U.S. If you're thinking about the University of Texas Arlington, I think that's great. I'll be here to answer any questions you may have. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. And then I know there was a lot of Q&A. I think it was like 14 questions that popped up. I'm going to go ahead and start looking at them now. So I think it's best if I start all the way at the top. Oh, okay. So Kamal asks, how does the local culture and campus life differ in each of the regions of the U.S. that you have mentioned? I think that's actually, I think that's actually a very, very, very good question. I might have to share my screen one more time. Um, let me see. Actually, I don't have the screen now. So I would say one, it, it's gonna depend on each region. Each region is different. I wouldn't say the difference is very vast and significant. Like for instance, we're all going to be speaking English. We all pretty much share the same views, but the huge difference I think is really the diversity of the population. So in the South, in the southern states, you know, in Texas, we have I think we are very blessed to have a very diverse population. Like I mentioned earlier, we represent countries. In this campus alone, we have students representing over 130 countries. So you can really meet people from all over the world here. And that really shows how inclusive we are in regards to international students. If you travel up, you know, in the North, Midwest area, you may not find that diversity as much. So predominantly, you may probably see more students, white students. The ratio definitely skyrockets up when you travel more towards the Midwest. East Coast, West Coast, those areas are very diverse as well. But also, there's other things you need to consider. I think, you know, cost of living standards. I also think climate, that's something that I didn't talk about as well. So culture, extremely important, but also climate, the weather. I think, you know, Texas, since Texas is pretty much fairly close to the equator in relative to India, that the climate is pretty much close, mirroring what the Indian climate is for the most part. If you're in like Mumbai area, I would say climate is a huge factor as well. I love snow. The only issue is I do not want to live in an area with too much snow. I like snow from time to time. I like seeing it from a distance. But living in an area that's constantly snowing in the winter could be hazardous, and it's just something that does not appeal to me. So I think that's something that you want to consider as well. But thank you for that question. So the next question is, does cost of living also have an impact on the value and amount for salaries? Okay, so does the cost of living also have an impact on the value and amount for salaries in the various part of the US? I would say definitely 100% answer is yes. So it's very easy for me to compare California and Texas. If you were to get a salary range of $50,000, annual salary of $50,000 US in California, and if you were to get a $50,000 annual salary in Texas, those are two different salary ranges. Even though the amount is the same, 50,000 in Texas is a pretty good living. That's considered you know, a pretty good salary. 50,000 in California actually is not a good salary. That's actually very low. So it could drastically be a huge difference. So that's something that you want to pay attention on. And this is why it's so important that when you receive a scholarship amount, when you're applying to multiple schools and you receive a scholarship, pay attention to the cost of living. Because if a school in California gives you a $2,000 scholarship and a school in Texas gives you a $2,000 scholarship, you know, that $2,000 goes along, definitely goes a longer way in Texas comparative to California. So, and I hate to pick on California. I love California. I think California has a great climate over there, and they also have really great schools too. But this is just an example that I'm talking about. So I hope that helps. Vivek asked the question, how many international undergraduate students do you have at UT Arlington? So I can give you a range. So within the UTA population, we have on average 4,000, over 4,000 students that are international, right? How many of them are undergraduate? actually is a little bit less than the 4,000 mark. So predominantly most of our international population are graduate students, but we do have a fair number of students undergrad as well. So I would say hovering around, close to 1,500 students yearly are undergraduate students that are international. So Nishit asked a good question about student faculty ratio. So I would say on average for the undergraduate level courses, our ratio is close to almost 20 students to 1. That's going to range just depending yearly. Our class sizes and our admissions rates have drastically increased from year to year. So we are seeing a lot more students interested in UTA, more students applying. We have been building tons and tons of new resources on campus. Just recently, within a couple years' time, we have built 2 additional buildings to house more students and to bring better, to bring good faculty members to ensure that the ratio is significant enough for you to get that personal experience with your professor. Obviously, some classes are going to be more bigger than others. So I would not be surprised if you were to take like a biology class and there was like 300 students on campus. So there's just some classes that are going to be big, really, really big by nature, and that's just normal. But for the most part, most classes will be medium size range. Again, we are a big campus, right? So about 20 to 1 is a good estimate of the faculty ratio. Mattel asked, does UTA offer internships as part of the program, or okay, so does UTA offer internships as part of the program, or are the internships during our summer months? So I think that's a really good question. It really depends, okay? So we always encourage students to apply for internship opportunities, to network with organizations and companies, and things like that. It depends on the program. Some programs will have an internship component towards the end. A lot of U.S. schools program are theory-based, but also practical-based. So we understand the importance of the two. We really want our students to have that practical education, that experience, that relevant work experience. Interested in like in business or in engineering, there will always be an internship component within the degree field. So whether you like it or not, you're going to get that practical experience. In regards to other opportunities, you are more than welcome to seek out internships. So as long as the internship is relevant to your education, you can definitely apply for internships in the summer months. It just depends. If you want that experience, you can get it. Some students use their summer to go back home to visit their family or go on vacation. Some students like you, Mattel, you can do your internship in the summer, gain more experience, and be more successful in the long run. Really up to you. And of course, we'll have support on hand to help you and guide you through the process as well. Anuj asked a question, what is the applied Texas and which one do you prefer? So I guess that question is applied Texas or Common App. It doesn't matter to me which one you apply for. Yeah, so either one, it should be fine. Applied Texas or the Common App. I guess which one you think is more easier to navigate, I guess. And then Vivek asked the question, would you provide English test waivers for 12th grade? Okay, so unfortunately, no. All international students in India are required to submit English proficiency exams. This may not be the case for all U.S. schools, because I understand, India is a predominantly English-speaking country. So it is kind of silly to say that we need to ask for English test scores from you. Unfortunately, right now, we ask for it. So to answer your question, unfortunately, no, you still need to submit test scores, whether it be the TOEFL, IELTS, or the Duolingo. If you're worried about taking the English proficiency exam, I would definitely look into the Duolingo exam. It's a lot easier. It seems like it's just more user-friendly. and it's also very cost effective too. So Anuj asked another question about minimum GPA score requirements for admissions and scholarship opportunities. So what is the minimum GPA score requirement? That's going to vary from year to year. On average, what we do is we just kind of take, we rank every student and we kind of come up with a GPA figure that we deem is considered high tier, mid-tier, and then low tier, because the Maverick Academic Scholarship is actually broken into multiple award opportunities. So we award students a $2,000 scholarship. We award students all the way up to an $8,000 scholarship. So it's gonna vary, right? So ideally, anybody with a GPA, and it's tricky too, because in India, you guys use a different score, a GPA calculation. In the US, we use a 4.0 calculation. So a 4.0 GPA is the highest. Ideally, anybody has a GPA above a 3.0, we will consider for scholarship opportunities, just depending on how competitive the upcoming class will be. In India, that will be considered out of a 10 scale, somewhere around a 7 and above. So Mattel asked, if I pursue an engineering major and a liberal arts minor, will the cost of tuition and duration of program increase? Mattel, I'm gonna say that's a good question, and it really depends. For the most part, I would say no, it will not. And the reason why I say that is because there's a point where if you're a full-time student, any additional amount of classes you take will not cost any increase whatsoever. So if you were to take 4 classes, here in the US, 4 classes is considered a full-time student. There are students that take 5 classes or 6 classes. I have taken 6 classes one time in one semester before. I don't recommend it though, see, so because it is a lot of work. So it is doable for you to increase how many classes you take per semester to get yourself that liberal arts minor. The only issue is that liberal arts is vastly different from engineering. So the degree plans will be a little bit different. So the classes won't align perfectly in some cases. So there may be situations where you probably have to extend your 4-year term to meet the criteria to graduate with the liberal arts minor. I think that's really interesting though, to have both an engineering background and a liberal arts background as well. So I think that's a really interesting combination. But to answer your question, it is doable to not have a significant cost increase. However, there may be some times where you probably have to pay a little bit extra though. So Anonymous asked, what would be the scholarship deadline for the University of Texas at Arlington? Oh, that's, so that was in my PowerPoint slide. The February 14th is the Maverick Academic Scholarship deadline. So I encourage you guys, if you're interested in applying to UTA, that is pretty much the deadline you should be focusing on. Because once you apply, here at UTA, there is no separate application process for scholarships. We look at every single student that apply within that deadline, and we automatically consider you for a scholarship based off of your academic profile. Mattel asked another question. Can you share the requirements for presidential scholarship and Maverick scholarships? So to answer your second question, can you apply for both? No, you cannot apply for both. We will automatically assess if you are a candidate or not. Can I share you the requirements? Unfortunately, the requirements do change from year to year. It's easy for me to say that, score the best you can on the SAT. And a lot of times I tell students that don't worry too much about the scores at right now. Right now, it's all about finishing strong in your high school careers, right? Do really, really well. Don't focus too much on the numbers. Do well in high school. This is your senior year. If you haven't taken the SAT, consider taking the SAT because that's the only way you'll be considered. Do the best you can, and then really it's just we hope for the best. But in the past, the numbers have always been somewhere around 1,200 and above for a good SAT score. So if you can get that range, I would say you stand a good chance to receive some form of scholarship. Now, the presidential scholarship is going to be the more highly praised and the top tier scholarship. So there's very limited space for that, and it just really depends on, there's really no guarantees. So once you apply, the scholarship office will assess all candidates, and then they will reach out to students that they think have reached the presidential scholarship. So I hope that answers your question. So Radish asked, what are your typical scholarships amount? Okay, yeah, so I think I already answered that. So there is no separate application process for our merit-based scholarships. They are all automatic. So once you apply, as long as you meet the scholarship deadline, you will be automatically in consideration. Now, once you arrive on campus, and I guess this is an important note too, because do not feel discouraged if you did not receive a scholarship. When I applied to UTA, I never got a scholarship, right? So scholarships are competitive. If I can give everybody a scholarship, I really would. And I think, you know, it'll be easy for me to say, yeah, everyone should get a scholarship. Unfortunately, that's not the case because scholarships are limited and they're competitive. However, I would always encourage students, if you don't receive a scholarship right off the bat when you apply, it doesn't mean you won't receive one later down the road, okay? There's gonna be other opportunities for you to apply for scholarship opportunities, whether it be external funding, whether it be one of the many companies located here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that may want to give you a scholarship for your hard work and dedication. So there's always going to be opportunities. And then Kamal asked, does the tuition fee remain the same for all majors? That's a good question. So for the most part, yes. All majors, regardless of what program you're going to be in, will fall under the same tuition and fee line. Now, there is going to be some small differences in the tuition. So give or take maybe a couple $100 here or there. And the reason why that is some of the funding for like College of Engineering, for instance, like the tuition for engineering may be a little bit more. That's because some of that money is going directly to the College of Engineering's library and the College of Engineering's like resources that they have that's different from maybe education or nursing or liberal arts. So the amount should be very, very close, but there will be a little difference between two majors. So if you're comparing your tuition from your friends who is a different major, it may be a little bit less, it may be a little bit more, but for the most part, they're the same. Neetu asked a question about letters of recommendations and essay requirements. So, okay, that's a good question. So the Common App application is, so we've streamlined the application in the US. So all schools in the United States, for the most part, used an online system for application. So I mentioned two, right? Common App is the main one where you can apply from schools in California, New York, in just one website. And then the Apply Texas is for most schools in the state of Texas, that they all got together and decided to use one website. So your question is about letters of recommendations and essay requirements. This is gonna vary from school to school. Even though on the Common App, it's gonna ask you to provide that, you may not need to provide it. So double check with the school that you're applying for. So the University of Texas at Arlington, even though we use the Common App, the letters of recommendation and essay requirement is not a requirement for admissions here at UTA. So bachelor's degree seeking students, we don't need the letters of recommendations. We don't need the essay requirement here. For the most part, we just look at your transcripts and we look at your test scores. Now, in a case where you do get a reject or you don't get admitted, that's when you can do an appeal process, in which case then you can submit to us letters of recommendations and essay requirements. So I hope that answers your question, Natut. And then Nashid asked, from a career job placement point of view, Would you recommend STEM students to pursue a bachelor's degree or combine it with a master's program as well? So that's a good question, Nishid, about STEM students, whether you should pursue a bachelor's degree or combine it with a master's program as well. I think first of all, to answer your question, honestly, I think it'll be too early in your career now to be thinking about a master's program, which I appreciate the fact that you're thinking ahead. But right now, I would say apply, do your bachelor's, do well in school. You know, your first 2 years, if you think about it, a bachelor's degree is 4 years long, right? It's 4 years long. You have 2 years to 3 years to assess, you know, the career opportunities. You have all these opportunities to network, to engage with your faculty and professors for you to make that decision. What is very good about UT Arlington, especially within the College of Engineering, is we have something called Fast Track. It's a fast track program. So a lot of times, if students feel the need that they want to pursue a master's degree, and there's many reasons why you should continue your education to pursue a master's degree, not necessarily just for career placement, but there's other reasons too. But typically, your senior year or your junior year, your remaining 2 years, you have the fast track option. So if you're a very stellar student and you have really good marks, there's an option for you to continue your education into the master's program right after graduation. So that definitely is an option. So I would say it's very good that you're thinking about that. But I would say as long as you do well in your bachelor's degree, there will always be an option towards the end of, at the point where you're about to graduate with your bachelor's, to continue on with the master's right off the bat. So I would say it's a little too early right now. It just depends. You may be able to receive a very, very good job offer after graduating with your bachelor's, and you may not need, you know, to get a master's. Or maybe you want to pursue that master's because you're really into research, or you have other career aspirations. In that case, I would say at the time of graduation, work with your academic advisor and say, hey, I'm interested in that master's program. And then you can get streamlined right into the master's program, so long that, you know, your marks are really good and your grades and you did really, really well in school. It shouldn't be a problem. But thank you for that question. Rashid asked, can you share about campus safety for your university and information? Okay, that is a very good question. So in my PowerPoint, I did mention that we are one of the top safest campus in the nation. We're actually in the rankings of the top 100 safest campuses in America. UTA was in that list. And if you can think about and put in perspective, how many colleges are in the United States? It's a very big number. It's actually 3,000, a little bit over 3,000 colleges in the US. So for the fact that UTA is top 100 safest campus in the country, that's a very, very huge deal, especially how diverse we are and how big we are in size and scope. That's a huge accomplishment with the police here on campus, but also the community. That really shows how caring and how inclusive we are here at UT Arlington. You talk about the campus size. The campus size is actually very, very big, dauntingly big. So I can't give you a number off the top of my head because I really don't know the number, to be honest. And in fact, we are constantly building new infrastructures and new buildings as we speak right now. We have a new building coming up. So it's always expanding, which is a good thing because there's always something new. We're always accommodating new students and larger class sizes. We really want the whole world to kind of experience UTA. So that's why we love our international students. You guys play a huge part in our campus experience. You asked about, Arlington City as a whole. I think Arlington City is diverse as UT Arlington. UT Arlington is actually located in downtown Arlington. So when you think about the city of Arlington, the first thing you really think about is UT Arlington, the university. We are pretty much a college, town, college city. So everything is everything kind of hovers around the university campus. So I hope that answers your question. Lavik asked, what are the popular majors and minors taken by the Indian students on campus? And what is the past success of your Indian students or Indian alumni? Okay, Lavik, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Um, so actually, we have a very long list of successful students from India that have graduated from UTA, one of which is actually was a U.S. astronaut. She graduated here, I believe in 2005, late 2004 with a PhD, and she participated in the U.S. Shuttle launch Columbia. Unfortunately, that space shuttle crashed in flight, and we actually have a memorial on campus for her. One of our dorm rooms is actually named after her. We call it KC Hall. I'm gonna butcher her name, unfortunately, but her name is Dr. Kachadawala. Like I'm gonna say it, but if you look it up, I'm gonna share this real quick. I'm gonna see if I can pull. Okay, yeah. Let me share my screen one more time. But okay, so if you guys can see my screen, Kalpana was she was born in India, and she was the first woman from that nation to travel into space. She's an astronaut. Oh, so my apologies. She actually graduated in '84. But in 2003, she was on the Columbia Space Shuttle, and unfortunately, she did lose her life when the space shuttle collapsed in flight. We have a memorial on campus honoring her, but I think that's a really great testament on no matter where you're from, where you're born, really the stars is the limit, right? But we're really proud of her, her story, her heritage, where she came from, where she started. But yeah, she was an international student in India. She was born in India at one point, and then she came to the U.S. and she became a U.S. astronaut. So I'm gonna stop sharing now. So hopefully that answers that question. And in regards to majors, the most popular major really is engineering fields, STEM fields. So a lot of computer science. I see a lot of architecture. I mean, it's really up to you what you want to do. And I hate to sway a student to pick one major versus the other. It's really your experience, right? Even though a lot of your friends may be majoring in a certain field, it's really up to you to find your calling and your passion, because really, if you're passionate about a major, you're going to do really, really well. You're going to have high marks. That's going to translate into, feeling better, you having a better time. That's going to translate for better job prospects, because one, your interviewing is a lot better. You're passionate about subjects, that shows that you're dedicated, and etc. So there's a lot to go in on that question on what major is the best. So the question Anuj asks is, do you offer early action or early decision for international freshman students? So unfortunately, no, we don't do early action or early decision. We do rolling admissions here. So it means that we accept applications year round. We try to provide you as much, as quick of a response as possible in regards to your admissions decision, because I understand there's a lot that goes in for a student in India that gets admitted, right? Because once you get admitted, you got to start, scheduling a visa interview. You got to prepare for that. You also have to prepare for, your housing in the U.S. There's a lot that goes on, and I totally understand that. So my hope is that once you apply, you should be able to contact us as soon within 24 to 48 hours, and we can track your application status throughout the way. So, and then that is pretty much all the questions. I do apologize. I did went above the 8 o'clock time. But any remaining questions, definitely let me know. I also will put my, my colleague will share my email if you guys have any additional questions, or if you want to do a follow-up meet and greet, or anything like that. Well, I do appreciate it. I'm gonna stop talking now, and I'll be here for a little bit more. But thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Peter. This was a very rich, engaging, insightful, and in depth information that we've had. So, thank you so much for hosting this session and providing such detailed information about the University of Texas at Arlington. Of course, studying in the US, what's it like, and of course, the application process for undergraduate students who are planning to, of course, the 12th graders who would be planning to go for next year. So, thank you so much for this. Truly appreciate your kind time and support once again. And to the 12th graders, 12th grade students, parents, and high school counselors, thank you so much for this. Counselors, thank you so much, as I mentioned earlier, for allowing your students and for coordinating this session with me so that your students can participate in this workshop. I really hope you found it useful. Counselors, also an important note, this session is recorded and we'll be sharing a recorded link with your school as well, so that other students who are not able to join in but are interested in the University of Texas at Arlington can listen in on this session, and of course be in direct contact in the future with Mr. Peter Lee. As I'm really sure and hoping these conversations continue well after this workshop is over, and that's of course the main aim of the workshop, is to connect you with the University of Texas at Arlington directly. But thank you so much once again, Peter. It was a pleasure speaking to you today, connecting with you. I wish you a wonderful day, and of course, look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Good night, students. Hope you have a pleasant evening. Take care, stay safe, and until next time, look forward to keeping in touch with everyone. Take care. Bye, Peter. Bye, everyone else.